Yes, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, Marcus Price, working with ARD German TV.
Yes.
You said Putin isn't an enemy, isn't a friend, it's just a competitor.
A competitor.
Do you consider him as a security threat for Europe or to the U.S.? Thank you.
Hey, I don't want him to be, and that's, I guess, why we have NATO. And that's why we have a United States that just had the largest military budget ever, $700 billion approved, $716 billion next year.
NATO is preparing. We were there for recent drills right on Russia's doorstep. This display of military might is about sending a message to Russia and its increasingly nervous neighbors, a message that any attack will immediately send powerful American warships roaring into battle. NATO admits it has an over-reliance on the United States for its funding and resources, but tonight allies fear President Trump's constant criticism over costs is just the beginning.
NATO is obsolete, it's old, it's fat, it's sloppy.
I think President Trump is fundamentally undermining the transatlantic alliance. He questions the value of the alliance.
That makes many nations worried, especially small ones close to Russia. In Latvia, volunteers are joining the National Guard in record numbers. And in Norway, a hit TV show imagines a future under Russian occupation. That may be a stretch, but for many in Europe, NATO is seen as more vital now than ever. Richard Engel, NBC News.
Russian air and sea activity around UK waters has increased dramatically in recent years. It is back up at Cold War levels, and it is getting worse.
This is a resurgence that has come very quickly. It is an intensifying resurgence of capability and scale that we didn't necessarily see coming maybe 10 years ago.
In his first major television interview, the First Sea Lord told me how the Royal Navy is now establishing an official joint area of operations in the North Atlantic. It will make the region a priority for Britain's armed forces, meaning ships and planes are deployed there much more regularly in future. One of their tasks will be to protect the vital undersea lines.
We are aware that the Russians have the capability to detect and work on those cables, and of course they're doing this in very difficult environmental conditions of very great depth. It's not easy to work out exactly what's going on.
An estimated 97% of global communications are transmitted by these fibre optic cables. They run thousands of meters below the sea, right around the world, and carry $10 trillion in daily financial transactions. If they were cut, it could be devastating.
The very fact that they are going to where we know the cables are and are using vessels that are coming away from the mothership in order to get close to the cables is a sign that they are at the very least surveying them and potentially looking to be able to do operations more than that.
NATO leaders meet in Brussels this week. Russia and the threat to Europe will be high on the agenda. The alliance's original founding role, securing the North Atlantic area, is once again the major priority.
The thought of their Russian neighbour looms large in Polish minds. Their defence ministry has proposed setting up a joint armoured division, which would have 15,000 US troops and a total of 250 tanks and armoured vehicles. They say establishing such a force will present an unequivocal challenge and deterrence to what they described as Russia's increasingly bold and dangerous posture towards Europe. The Pentagon is reported to be actively engaged on costing the plan, but Moscow has warned it will retaliate against any NATO expansion on its western flank.
Oh my God, this is the dream of all military people, including me. And I believe many Polish citizens. For the last 30 years, we were dreaming about it, because since we joined NATO, we felt kind of like a second-grade member, or second-grade member of the alliance, because we could not have permanent or even temporary NATO bases here.
The monuments in Warsaw marking the Second World War show all too clearly why the Poles want to shelter under the wings of Washington. 6 million of their citizens died, most of them civilians, under the successive occupations by Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union.